Hello everyone, and today I'm going to be reviewing Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth for the PlayStation 4. Now for quite a while, Digimon games haven't been so great. They have ranged in quality from alright to mediocre to complete garbage. They've suffered from everything from long load times to poor graphics and frame rates to battle systems that not only don't make any sense, but that even strip away all control from the player. At the same time, the Digimon anime series have had a cult following, and especially the first three. The first two being popular due to nostalgia and popularity in the 90s, and Tamers being popular because, well, it was a really good series written by the same person who wrote another classic anime called Serial Experiments Lane. Personally, I believe Tamers was the best Digimon series. It was well written, it had great Digimon, it explored themes that many of the other series didn't explore, and the music in the Japanese version was great, and I'd recommend you watch Digimon Tamers subbed anyway. Despite the unusually high quality of the Digimon franchise, especially considering the fact it's a toyetic series, for quite a while the Digimon games have failed to capture the feel of the anime series. The video games have also gotten rather mixed receptions in the West, with Digimon World Dawn and Dusk being the last Digimon story game to be released worldwide. After Digimon World Championship did poorly and fell into obscurity to the point where it was being found in dollar store clearance bins, Lost Evolution, Super Cross Wars, and Redigitized got Japan-only releases. The only game the USA got, meanwhile, was a half-baked cash-in game called Digimon All-Star Rumble, and it wasn't released long ago either. Now, All-Star Rumble was a truly awful game that had cash grab written all over it. The graphics were poor even for a 360 launch title, the frame rate was a complete joke, and the game's balancing was horrible, and it didn't even have an online mode. It wasn't even released in Japan, where Digimon games are normally released and then never localized. For this reason, I went into this game with fairly mixed expectations. After playing numerous overrated Digimon games, such as the PS1 titles, and games that were straight up garbage, such as Data Squad for the PlayStation 2, I had no idea what to expect. I also hadn't played any of the Digimon story games, such as World DS or Dawn and Dusk. Would this finally be that Digimon game that hooked me like Tamers did when I watched it, or would it sit forgotten in $50 listings on Amazon like numerous other Digimon games before this one did? Let's find out. Now, Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth is a role-playing game for the PlayStation 4 and the Vita, and it was originally made for the Vita. It was published by Bandai Namco and developed by Mediavision, best known for the Wild Arms series of video games, some PSP Shining games, and the still unlocalized Valkyria Chronicles 3. It is the fifth title in the Digimon Story series, however only the original and the paired Dawn and Dusk versions were released in the US and retitled as Digimon World games. Originally it was released on the Vita in Japan, however for the Western release it was ported to the far more popular PS4 and released on both consoles. If you decide to double dip and buy two copies of the game does feature crossplay, which allows you to use your save files on both platforms. First, let's start the review with the premise of the game. There will be minor spoilers during the review, however I will try to spoil as little as possible since this is a game best experienced if you have no knowledge of anything going on in the game. Unlike some gamers, I don't believe in uploading long videos that spoil entire games, nor do I believe in using gameplay footage as a substitute for actually playing the game. Instead, I feel you should experience this game for yourself. The premise of Cyber Sleuth is that you are a user of the futuristic computer network known as Eden. A hacker posing as an admin comes into your chat room and asks you to be there at a certain time or else you'll get hacked. You and two others go to this shady part of the network and show up and are given a means to capture Digimon. Not long after you select your Digimon and your gender, you end up having to fight a malicious program called an Eater that is trying to kill you, and you end up in the real world as Data. A detective agency specializing in cybercrime and the paranormal finds you and discovers you have a power now, thanks to this, to jump into computers and interconnected devices such as vending machines, arcade machines, and terminals due to this event. You then have to take missions that make up the storyline of the video game, as you explore Tokyo, Japan for answers as the main story plays out. The storyline is by far the best part of the game, and it makes the game worth playing. I was hooked on this game, playing this game for as long as I possibly could just to see what would happen next. While I don't want to spoil it, I'll just say this. If you enjoy Digimon Tamers or Soul Hackers, you'll enjoy this video game storyline. Just be warned, this game does revolve a lot around story, which makes it even better that this game now has an English localization. Keep in mind, you won't get a generic Kid on a Monster Quest storyline like some multimedia franchises hand you on a cartridge-shaped platter. Instead, you'll get a well-written storyline with plenty of twists and turns of events you're not expecting. But yet at the same time, it does make sense considering what they tell you beforehand. At times, the story can be pretty dark, and I mean darker than the second half of Tamer's Dark, especially since throughout the entire game you find out that not everything is as it appears. It's not dark the whole game, however, and there are quite a few times I was laughing at it, such as during some side missions during the first half of the game. While there are some weak moments, such as a poorly written minor antagonist in the first half of the game, they didn't distract from the game's core storyline, which really gets interesting the further you play. While the first parts are used to establish the setting of the game, some of the core themes and what exactly is happening throughout the entire game as you play through and find out what is going on. Even the side missions reinforce the core themes of the game's storyline, and this is evident the further you go in the game. And yes, there are some truly weird plot twists that only make sense in hindsight. The game also explains quite a few things about the settings similar to what Tamers does, and you do not need to have any Digimon knowledge to enjoy this game. Even if you've never watched the Digimon series before, by the end of the game you will not only know quite a bit about Digimon's common mythology, but you might want to seek out more Digimon media such as the anime. If you're familiar with some Digimon mythology such as the Royal Knights, Digicode, Yggdrasil, and more, then you'll likely be satisfied more so as this game references the 05 to 07 period of Digimon a lot. In short, if this game's storyline was used for a Digimon anime series, or at least an OVA, I guarantee it would be one of the better Digimon seasons, if not the best one. The perspective of this game is far different from that of other Digimon series, taking place in the real world even more than Tamers or Savers do. And just like every non-sequel season, the game offers its own unique take on the whole Digimon concept and mythology that is different in a way from that of other Digimon seasons. The main con is that the game isn't very open, but then again neither are most Japanese role-playing games. In between story sequences and red tack story missions, you can take on side missions, and the game encourages you to do this. Many of the side missions aren't plot critical, but they are fairly interesting and you do get some rewards by playing through them. If anything, they remind me of the DS game Soul to Robo with regards to the writing of the missions, and you usually don't feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again thanks to this. Nearly all the quests are worth playing. However, the green tack ones you can find through investigating on your Digifarm are completely worthless and can be skipped, since most of them are repetitive fetch quests or battles with generic hacker non-player characters that you've likely outleveled. You can also download additional missions from the PlayStation Network. However, with the 1 megabyte download size, I wouldn't be shocked if they were in fact dislot content. However, these are all side missions with nothing to do with the main quest. The game has an aesthetic closer to that of a Shin Megami Tensei game such as Soul Hackers or the older Super Nintendo titles, and this is helped by the fact that the character artist is the same one who worked on the Devil Survivor games. Eden features the same art direction as Our War game or Summer Wars, which is very colorful and vibrant, with bright colors everywhere and a white background. Certain events that happen in the world and the Eaters also have a very distinct art direction as well, with the events having a feel closer to that of Jet Set Radio, but a little bit bleaker if you know what I mean, while the Eaters have a very unique art style that's inspired by 3D glitches. The use of multiple art styles reminded me of the Halo series in the sense that each faction had their own architecture style. When you're in digital areas, the first 3 Digimon in your party actually follow you around, with their models even on screen. If you've played Digimon World 3, this feature is likely familiar to you. Kinect jumps and digital spaces also have their own unique art style. They feature blue 3D wireframes everywhere to really make you feel that 90s cyberpunk movie aesthetic. In fact, with Kinect jumps, you actually travel through the network. During certain parts of the game, there are even quick animated cutscenes, while another dungeon has a pre-rendered full motion video in the background. Kowloon also shares a similar art style, complete with error messages in the background to really let you know that you are in a digital world that is somehow decayed and gone to hell. Japan, on the other hand, doesn't have that same distinct look for the first half of the game, taking place in real-world Tokyo, Japan. Similar to Tamer's, real-world locations such as the Nakano Broadway and Shibuya Towers record store make an appearance in the game, and while some names and banners were changed for the Western release, the game still retains a Japanese feel. There's even a mini arcade in the Nakano Broadway with Tekken 2 posters, and in Akihabara there is a Sega branded arcade in the game. Due to system limitations of the Vita, however, all the maps are broken up and there isn't a lot of Tokyo, Japan you can explore other than those small parts. However, this gives the game a similar feel to that of older PlayStation 1 role-playing games where the maps were split up as well, along with the mostly fixed camera that can only be zoomed in and out. If anything, the perfect way to describe this game's aesthetic is like if you took a 90s or 80s cyberpunk film or game, mixed it with the numerous grand plans that plenty of tech companies had in the past for the future, as depicted by their marketing or 90s tech marketing in general, and then had everything take place in a cyberpunk universe inspired by a post-iPhone society with modern-day technology, with technology literally taking over the lives of citizens in a modern-day Japan, a setting most people today can relate to compared to, say, another walled city type setting. This works, especially as the events of the game play out. While Digimon Tamers featured cutting-edge and popular technology of the time such as card readers, iMacs, flip phones, glass cockpits, or Palm Pilots with Palm 7-style wireless modem attachments, Cyber Sleuth features an interconnected world with smartphones, public terminals to enter Eden, likely the Internet of Things, and digivices that are fashioned more after modern-day technology than, say, toys like they were in the past. The player character's goggles in Cyber Sleuth, for example, happen to be a digivice as well, and this was likely influenced by technology such as the Google Glass or HoloLens. I don't want to spoil much of the story, but I'll just say if you've been following tech news lately, you can easily understand why the story was written in the way it was with hackers, and why the setting was chosen to be that specific one. And of course, in typical Digimon fashion, there are some historical computing references. While the Ryo games featured the ENIAC, and while Tamers made an early virus written for VAX and Sun 3 systems a critical plot element, a side arc in Cyber Sleuth is about a vacuum tube computer. One of the main characters has their username set to Blue Box, and you get a message written using T9 as a cipher. One nice little touch I noticed with the game is that instead of using sprites for characters and cutscenes like many modern Japanese role-playing games do, such as Neptunia, the game uses the same 3D models that are used for the characters, complete with animations, which is something you don't see very often. This extends to action scenes with characters reacting to the events going on around them instead of just standing there with a still image like what many Japanese role-playing games now do. Much of the game takes place in both modern-day Japan and Eden, a virtual world like what Second Life wanted to be, except you can actually go into it instead of sitting behind your monitor living on a Red Bull and Hot Pocket diet. Missions take place both in the real world and Eden, and while the game encourages you to follow the main story, you can do side missions to level up your characters and get items. Eden functions as this game's digital world, essentially, and using terminals, you can travel between Eden and Tokyo, Japan. The game's battle system is carried over from the other Digimon Story games for the Nintendo DS. You have a health bar and a skill point bar. Instead of entering in your commands like Pokemon or some older role-playing games and watching the battles unfold in a consistent stream of turns where you enter in your actions one at a time, marked by the player turn indicators on the right side of the screen. There are status effects and hold items that can heal or boost your Digimon stats, and an auto battle button that mainly uses skills to defeat your enemies and usually the most powerful ones. ones. If you have several party Digimon in a row in the turn indicator, you might notice a cross combo notification on your screen as multiple Digimon in your party team up to boost each other's moves or chain them. Raising your CAM percentage for each Digimon along with using certain items and moves can increase the likelihood of this happening as well. There are 4 types of Digimon, and several other attributes Digimon have too. Virus, Vaccine, and Data act as rock, paper, and scissors, while neutral-type Digimon are neither strong nor weak against any of the 3 types, and many boss battles will use this too. If your Digimon is weak against the type, however, it really is weak, especially on hard, since enemy attacks are buffed, and even on normal, your attacks aren't that effective against bosses. So prepare for battles by going to the Digilab and switching out your Digimon. For example, an attack that would have dealt around 8 to 900 damage would deal over 4,500 damage instead. You might also need to purchase pizza rolls or Hot Pockets at Walmart to endure the extremely unbalanced attacks by the bosses on hard mode, or to endure long grinding sessions if you want to level up your Digimon to destroy bosses on hard mode. Despite the battle system playing it safe, due to the 60 frames per second gameplay and speed of attacks, the game feels fast. Combined with quick attack animations that in many cases happen to have the same feel as the Digimon TV show, battles in this game feel fast and fun. Plus, unlike some of the older Digimon games, the game doesn't try to hand you battle systems that are completely random like, say, Digimon World does. While the game does feature some generic status conditions such as poison, which hurts your health progressively more each turn, sleep, which makes your Digimon unable to move, stun, which slows your Digimon down, panic, which causes your Digimon to use a basic attack against a random opponent, including your own party, and a perilous status condition that causes your Digimon to be unable to use moves for that turn sometimes, the game also takes advantage of the Digimon property and introduces some more unique status conditions. Bug, for example, changes your Digimon into the type it's strong against, and Dot turns your Digimon into a V-Pet-style sprite and only lets you attack, while attacking causes your Digimon to make a beep sound effect, kind of like the V-Pets do. At specific parts in the game, other characters will team up with you, and either they will attack enemies for you, or they will help your party. They seem to have infinite health and can't get damaged by status conditions, however they don't always make the smartest decisions. One unique part about the game is that you can swap in and out moves. While Pokemon has the clunky 4-move system with disposable TMs that can be harder to find than Sega Saturn games in used game stores, Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth has your characters learning moves which are then stored. You can then switch them out before battle, changing your moveset to fit a boss battle strategy, for example, and in hard mode you will need this because the difficulty can be insane due to buffed attacks from enemies. Your Digimon can store up to 20 moves. However, once you learn more than 20 moves, which will happen if you're, for example, digivolving a bunch, you will need to forget some moves, and the game gives you a prompt that allows you to do this easily when you learn more than 20 moves. The game loves to use computer analogies to give you the complete 90s computer-inspired multimedia franchise feel. The area this is most evident in, however, is your party. Your party count is determined by 2 limits. One being how many Digimon you can have in your party, which is 11, and another being how much memory your party has in it. Each Digimon uses up so much memory, and to store higher level Digimon in your party, you need to collect memory up units, which are either handed out after completing certain story missions, or found in crates as you play through the game. This is also evident in the general art direction and aesthetic of Eden, as it really feels like something straight out of the 90s in a good way. The game features 2 difficulty modes. Normal, which is the same as the original Japanese Vita version before it got a patch to add in hard mode, and hard, which raises the health of the enemies and boosts their stats. In some cases, this can make the game far, far harder than the original easy difficulty, to the point where it's extremely frustrating if you didn't grind beforehand. This mostly affects the boss fights, and it can really hit you like a brick. I'd recommend playing the game first, at least with normal on boss fights, so you can experience the story first, and then again with the new save file on hard difficulty, since the story really is worth experiencing. Also, no matter what difficulty you play on, treat your game the same way you would treat a final paper for class, by saving often. While the battle system might not offer much new, one unique feature that Cyber Sleuth has is the Digimon farm. Think like Pokemon's Daycare on steroids or a streamlined version of the Digimon V Pets. You can research items, train, or investigate for items and additional side cases for additional money and experience. You can also feed your Digimon to raise their cam level outside of battle, which is required to Digivolve. In fact, I might as well talk about how the Digivolution system in Cyber Sleuth works. Once you reach certain stats, including the Digimon's level, you can then Digivolve your Digimon to the next level. Unlike the anime, however, you're given several choices on what you can Digivolve your Digimon into, with in-training level Digimon especially being given far more ways to Digivolve than in the anime. For example, you can Digivolve Koromon into Agumon, Guilmon, Toy Agumon, or Hackmon. Or you can Digivolve Tainmon into Lalamon, Palmon, or Renamon. Those are just a few examples, however. If you haven't encountered a Digimon you're Digivolving to, their image is blacked out. However, you can use a Game FAQs guide to know what you're Digivolving to. You also can't Digivolve into a Digimon you have not discovered yet. The game also encourages you to de-Digivolve in several ways. For example, if you convert data into a Digimon that's higher leveled, you won't be able to level it past around level 25, and you will need to de-Digivolve, level back up, and then Digivolve again and level up to get to the next form. Another frustrating mechanic is the Abby stat. To increase the Abby stat, you need to de-Digivolve and then Digivolve again as well, requiring you to level up all the way. However, thanks to the power of the internet, there are guides posted on how to exploit the game's mechanics to your advantage and level up quickly. Sadly, this isn't explained in the game very well, with the game referring to that stat as abilities, and I had to look for a guide online to explain how to increase that stat. To get Digimon into your party, the game uses a pretty unique system. Instead of negotiating with enemies like in Shin Megami Tensei or throwing items at the enemies like in Pokemon, you instead have to simply encounter the enemies. This can be done by encountering them any way in the game, including in boss fights and in offline coliseums. The higher level the enemies are, however, the more you need to encounter them or use items such as the Researcher USB. If you want to boost the encounter rate, there's a hacking skill called Function Call that allows you to either boost your encounter rate or trigger an instant encounter, while another one drops it entirely if you're trying to save your health for boss battles. I ended up abusing Function Call to help add some Digimon to my farm quicker. The game without any patches features 240 different Digimon, with a good amount of them being from Adventure, Zero 2, Tamers, and Savers. There are also some Digimon from the X-Evolution era in the game, such as Dorumon and a few other X-antibody carriers, and some more recent Digimon that have appeared in Digimon media after Cross Wars or from that time period, such as unlocalized video games. Patch 1.04 adds more Digimon to the game, bringing the total to 249, which includes DLC. The game does not feature many Digimon from Frontier or Cross Wars, which is strange, since Cross Wars is fairly recent, with the last episode airing in the USA just last year. However, while you won't find Digimon introduced in Cross Wars in the game, you will find some Digimon that appeared in that series, such as Lilithmon. Once you get near the end of the game, you can beat missions that allow you to Digivolve into the Royal Knights. Some alternate Digivolutions are also locked behind pre-order DLC packs that haven't been made available to everyone, at least for the Western version. These are stored in the Field Guide, which serves as a similar function to that of the Pokédex from Pokemon. While some of the entries serve as brief descriptions, other entries contain references to Digimon media, including some of the movies and anime series. And yes, there are some over-the-top style entries similar to that of the Pokemon franchise, but as anyone who has watched a Digimon series knows, in the TV series they really are that powerful. The soundtrack for this game is one of the best I've heard in a video game this year. The soundtrack was composed by Masafumi Takeda, best known for making the music for games such as Killer 7, the Danganronpa series, the Earth Defense Force series, No More Heroes, Vanquish, and more. This game has quite a few amazing songs in it, such as the Eden themes, the theme for a certain tunnel in the game and some of the events, and the boss theme. The game's soundtrack consists of quite a few different styles of music. Some songs have a Phantasy Star Online or Universe vibe to them, or soul hackers, like you're exploring this whole new world, while other songs sound like the music you'd play when you feel like you're hacking or being a sysadmin behind a Model M keyboard and several monitors, or a classic plastic ThinkPad or black colored PowerBook complete with the old rainbow logo. It's also on a music CD which is for sale online at websites such as PlayAsia or eBay and Amazon. You know, the usual. For the best experience, I'd recommend that you play this game with a nice pair of headphones plugged into your Vita or DualShock 4. The game's soundtrack really is amazing, and wearing them enhances the experience. Now it's time to talk about the game technically. The game is a Vita port, and it definitely shows with the graphics. Sometimes during cutscenes, the frame rate will drop to a low portable style frame rate due to the fact that the animations are running at a lower frame rate. Another area where it's blatantly obvious that the game's a Vita port is the controls, as the game uses L1 and R1 for menu scrolling. Despite this, the game more than makes up for this with the art direction, the lack of load times, and the fact that the game runs at a near consistent 60 frames per second. Battles feel fast and smooth, with animations inspired by the Digimon TV shows running at that nice smooth frame rate as well. Like many modern Vita anime-styled games, the game is cel-shaded, however it looks a lot better than the cel shading used in, say, Data Squad for the PlayStation 2. It also looks miles better than Pokemon X and Y, and to an extent Sun and Moon, but that's not saying much, because a rotting pizza or burger surrounded by insects in a Walmart parking lot looks much better than X and Y. Another thing that I wish had been included in the game were more than 2 difficulty options, especially since the game has balancing issues on hard. Perhaps the biggest flaw with this game, however, is more or less with the localization. Sometimes there are punctuation errors, but most of the time when I notice a typo, it's a dialogue option that is spread over 3 options. The game also sends you quiz messages to your Digivice, and quite oftentimes the answers will be completely wrong, as you'll answer it and they'll tell you the answer was something that was obviously different, or they'll say that something else you chose was the correct answer and that you answered right. This is nothing that couldn't be fixed with a free patch, however. During another segment, a subtitle referred to the incorrect character, even though in context it was obvious which character it was. A lot of stuff is not changed, however. For example, one of the main characters references Japanese folklore a lot, and all the voices in this game are in Japanese. Along with Digimon World 2 and the streams that were offered with subtitled Digimon, this is one of the few times Digimon-related media has been released in the West with Japanese voices and a relatively unchanged localization, especially when Digimon Data Squad featured a Digimon being censored for the dub, and Fusion featured some major changes to the evolution system the characters used in the show. There are some other minor flaws I noticed, such as no skip cutscenes button you can use if you're replaying the game, or no load button in the game. This can get frustrating near the end of the game when you're having to skip 20 minutes worth of cutscenes because you got destroyed by a boss on hard mode because they used an attack that wiped out your character. Considering how even no-budget compile heart tier games can include a skip button, this is a glaring omission. The localization and patch for the Japanese version also adds a new Game Plus feature to the game, but despite this you won't get any new story content or harder difficulty, just the ability to start a game with all your Digimon and play through the story again. The game is a pretty long game, and depending on how much time you spend in the Digilab or on leveling up your characters to get Digivolutions, the game can take anywhere from 50 to 100 hours. There are also some free DLC quests that are optional, however the Dark Lord's quest is very unbalanced on normal mode, even compared to the balance issues on hard mode, and on hard mode it wouldn't be a stretch to declare it unbeatable. You only get a Digimon evolution by completing the quest anyhow, and you have to question if it's really worth it when the game has bosses that spam attacks without giving you a chance to react. Even a walkthrough on the game suggested to use a specific Digimon, which can be time consuming if you have to get it, especially to beat a boss, and you can safely skip this quest without missing on anything story related. If there's a sequel or another Digimon Story game, some things I'd like to see are an improved battle system and maybe a greater selection of Digimon. I also wish this game would get a PC port. However, if you don't want to wait for a port that might never come, a PlayStation TV is only $30 on Amazon right now and it will play this game. Another thing I could have wanted was multiple paths, similar to that of more modern Western role-playing games or the Mega 10 series. Now, the game sadly lacks that, but that doesn't change the fact that the story is very well written, and despite the areas where it sputtered, it was still great as a whole, especially considering its length. Despite this, there were times during where I felt the writing could have been improved by adding in several dialogue options even, similar to Western role-playing games, especially due to the fact that your main character is a mostly silent protagonist who says a few lines. but not many throughout the whole game, and usually when your character talks to other characters, it's quite oftentimes silent. In essence, the main character is who you see the game through the eyes of, similar to other games with silent protagonists, and if anything, the silent main character reminds me the most of Shin Megami Tensei, especially with the story format this game uses. Unlike Shin Megami Tensei, however, there's only a single path you can play through, and a single ending, though a fairly satisfying one. A friend I messaged on Steam also suggested that the next game should be developed with the console as the lead platform due to the fact that the game was clearly designed around the Vita's limitations. For example, Tokyo's sections were small and Eden mostly consisted of some areas and linear dungeons. However, the writing makes up for the game sometimes feeling like you're doing the same thing over and over again. But hey, that's just a wish list. I could ramble on and on about my thoughts with the story as a whole, but I'd rather not spoil it for those who haven't beaten the game. All I can say is it's very satisfying and keeps you engaged. The game is also packed to the brim with hours and hours of content and numerous Digimon from multiple series, along with little references here and there to past series. However, unlike some games such as Pokemon X and Y, which dwell on references, this game doesn't do that, and in turn it comes off as a very interesting game. My final thoughts are that I really enjoyed this game, and it managed to hook me for a good reason. It's a very good game, and a highly underrated one too. What really kept me coming back to play this game was the story and how interesting it was, especially due to the fact that despite our society being computer-centric, there haven't been too many cyberpunk or computer-related games released lately, especially ones that aren't indie games. It's definitely worth playing, even if you've never touched a piece of Digimon media in your entire life. If you're looking for a role-playing game that doesn't devolve into fan service, you'll also love this game. My only real gripes are the balance issues, especially with the free DLC quests, and the tacked-on hard mode, which doesn't feel like it was play-tested much. However, if you are a Digimon fan, the real reason is, why haven't you purchased this game yet? As a Digimon game, this is the best there is. The game manages to feel like you're playing through one of the better Digimon series. It suffers from few of the flaws that managed to drag down previous Digimon titles, especially with the difficulty option choosing if you want a game that you can play through, or something more along the lines of Digimon World 3 and other older Digimon role-playing games. Considering how the next Digimon game is looking like another pseudo V-Pet simulator in the vein of Digimon World, it seems like this might be the best Digimon game for a while too. This is the Digimon game I personally would have wanted made, and I think many of the fans of the series would agree with me. Even with the balance issues, the game is nowhere near as unbalanced as many of the previous Digimon games were. And if you want to compare the game with, say, Pokemon, it's too unfair. Pokemon X and Y is such a joke that nearly anything could crush it. From difficulty to storyline to gameplay, Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth is a far better game. Instead of focusing on waifu petting and broken competitive play, Digimon features a good storyline and great music along with fast-paced gameplay. Compared to X and Y, the game also feels like a higher budget game, with select areas in the game even having animated cutscenes and graphics that don't look terrible for the system it's on. No matter who you are, though, this game has something for everyone. No matter if you want to collect monsters, or if you want a great storyline, or if you like your games easy or hard, this game has something for you. I wouldn't be shocked if this game became a cult hit in the future, especially because this game is not only the best Digimon game that's been made, but also because this game offers far more for someone who is not a die-hard Digimon fan. And did I mention that this game is a great value for the money? While the game was initially $60 at launch, Amazon is selling the game for $30 right now, which is cheaper than the new Pokemon game and many new titles coming out or that just came out. Considering how the game has hours and hours of gameplay and several ways to play, it's definitely worth the $30 this game is going for on the PlayStation 4. On the Vita, however, you need to either import the game to get a physical copy or buy it on the digital store, which can cost more money since Vita memory cards are pricey and digital prices can sometimes remain high for extended periods of time. All in all, I'd recommend this game to every PS4 owner who enjoys role-playing games, and I can easily say, buy this game. That's all that needs to be said. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more.